Welcome back. All right, so I did a panic index on the 21st of November, so 9 days ago. On that panic index, I had the Stanley Cup magnet. I had the Toronto Maple Leafs down next to it. Not because they're Stanley Cup contenders, but because I feel like whatever Toronto does in the regular season doesn't matter. We're waiting for the playoffs. However, somebody clearly fast forwarded to the end last week and started going off on all my videos about how stupid I was because I said Toronto was going to win the Stanley Cup, and I had blown any credibility I might have had as a YouTuber and as a person, and on and on and on. So this magnet here is my Kevin Malone. I have very little patience for stupidity. So again, when somebody fast forwards to the end of a video rather than watching said video just to make statements that clearly are not accurate about what I said in the video, I have the right to mock. I have the right to make jokes at their expense a little bit. Because again, it's not what I said. I basically said whatever Toronto does doesn't matter till the playoffs. But question I keep getting, and I thought, all right, I'll do a video here on it. If the playoffs started today, right now, which teams do I think would do the best? Which teams do I think are most likely to go all the way to the Stanley Cup? So we got the Western Conference and the Eastern Conference. I've not tested this, but it should be easy for me to get 2 columns of 8 here for both. So out of the West, all right, which team would come out of the West if the playoffs started today? You know, I honestly get the feeling that right now it might be Colorado. Now, I'm still taking Dallas to make it to the Stanley Cup final against New Jersey. I do not change that during the season because things change a lot during the season. I'm just saying if the playoffs started right now, I like Colorado's chances. I think they have the best chance. Out of the East, the East is somewhat tougher. I don't think Boston's playing the best hockey of the teams in the East, although they've been up there. I do think that the New York Rangers would be the team that would come out. So that'd be Colorado and the Rangers, I would think, if the playoffs started today. That would be my guess. Now, going back out west, next team on the board, you know, I know Vegas is going through a lot right now, but in a best of 7 series, I don't think they go out that easily. So a Colorado Vegas conference final, yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. Which means then you have to get into the Eastern Conference. Now Tampa Bay got knocked out in the first round last year. It's the first time they've been knocked out in the first round since 2019, and their record's not great. But in a best of 7 series, could I see them getting all the way to the conference final? And my answer right now would be, I'm kind of on the fence with that. Because you've got Detroit playing pretty well. They definitely had a good game last night against the Rangers. Some controversy in that game against the Rangers, certainly, but it was a good game for them. I don't know if Toronto could do it. And so this is where you have a problem because Boston might be the likeliest to come out of that division and thus kind of have to go second on the board. But I don't know that Boston would have much of a chance against New York Rangers. I do think if they can play their defensive stifling style, that'd be tough to beat in the playoffs. So that's my guess right now. Going back out west, I'm going to put Dallas on the board, but I'm also going to put another team from the Central on the board in Winnipeg. I think Dallas and Winnipeg are very close. That's why I put both of them on the board because these two, I think it's basically 6 in one and a half dozen in the other. I think they're very close to one another in terms of the likelihood of them going on a run. Obviously, I'd be very happy if Dallas went on a run to the final. They did that in 2020. I'd also be very happy if Winnipeg went on a run to the final. Jets fans have certainly paid their dues, so I would say, yeah, Winnipeg. So, going back over to the East. So, Washington's style of play, they're leaning a lot on goaltending and defense, which can be a hallmark of the playoffs. But do I see them going that far in the playoffs? I'm going to put, you know what? I'm going to go another direction. I'm going to put Florida here. In fact, when I think about it, would Boston beat Florida in a playoff series right now? Would they? I don't think so either. I don't think so either. So we're going to put Florida second, Boston third. So, see, I can move these around, too. So don't start raging in the comments. I can't believe you put them there when I can change, including the Kings are tough to rank right now. The Kings outplayed Washington last night. Probably should have won that game, right? Would they beat Winnipeg in a best of 7? Would they beat Dallas in a best of 7? I'm going to go ahead and say, yeah, Yep, I'll have LA third. Now, the idea that LA Vegas, how could you take Vegas over LA? I feel like, let me just see if I can make it so it's not so shiny. Yeah, it's close enough. You guys know it's Kings. It'd be close. It'd be very close. One of the reasons I wanted to do this video is because I do believe you can make an argument for a lot of teams when it comes to the Stanley Cup right now. So, all right, we'll come back over to the East now that I got 5 here and 3 here, and the whole thing's all messed up, and Canuck fans are already angry, but we'll get to that. So New Jersey's playing a little better. I don't know that I would have New Jersey that high. Again, Washington. Yeah, I'll put Washington at 4th, although, again, it's going to depend on the defense and the goaltending. They're not getting the goal scoring right now that you would expect. Once everybody's healthy, we'll see if their scoring gets better and if it's more reliable. The good news being guys like McMichael, Protas, their depth guys have really picked it up recently. So we'll have them there. I would put Toronto in 5th spot. I think Toronto is definitely a team that's got its share of issues, but they're still above the playoff line. I'll put Tampa Bay beneath Toronto. One reason being Tampa Bay with the return of Vasilevsky. They had that one win when he came back. That was more of a Ronta meltdown, I thought, than a Tampa win. But again, Tampa Bay does get 8 goals there. So I don't know in a best of 7 series right now if I would take Tampa Bay over the teams I have ahead of them. But this again shows the depth in the National Hockey League. You could make an argument for Tampa Bay based on their star players and their Stanley Cup championships in previous seasons. Which brings us back out west. I'll throw Vancouver here. Sure. I don't think Vancouver in a best of 7 series is suited right now to a long playoff run. I think that this is a team that could make the playoffs this year. They should make the playoffs now with the amount of points they have and with some of the slow starts. They should be able to keep that cushion throughout the year. Would I be overly surprised if they didn't? Not really. But yeah, so I'll have Vancouver on the board there. Do I want to put anybody else in the West there? I'll throw St. Louis up there. I do think with Jordan Binnington, if they make the playoffs, they're going to be dangerous. And if we were having playoffs starting today, it is hard to argue against Nashville. You could argue Nashville. You know what? I'll argue Nashville ahead of St. Louis right now. Nashville's on that 6-game winning streak. I don't think that with the way they're playing right now, they'd be an easy out in the playoffs. But again, we don't start the playoffs in November. So we've got 6 teams in the East. And I'll throw Pittsburgh on the board because I know better than to say Pittsburgh doesn't make the playoffs. They may not make the playoffs, but I still look at Pittsburgh and think, yeah, they probably should make the playoffs. So rounding out the top 8 in the East in terms of who I think is most likely, you know what? I'll put Detroit ahead of Pittsburgh. There you go. Detroit, I'll put ahead of Pittsburgh. Detroit, good young team. A lot of good parts to that team. Are they ready to win a Stanley Cup this year? No. I would say no to that. I think it would be fun if they did, just for the amount of meltdowns people would have if Detroit just gets in the playoffs and wins a Stanley Cup the first year. Plus, for fans of Yzerman, and I'm a fan of Yzerman's, that would definitely be good news for people who believe in the Yzer plan. So that's 8 each. And then we get over to the West. Now, teams that are below the playoff line, I do think Edmonton's dangerous. I do. I think Edmonton is a team that's dangerous. I'll throw them in the second column and say if they can keep up what they've been doing, they've got 6 wins in their last 9. They may very well end up on the good side of things where they end up on the playoff side of things, and they could be a tough out. In the East, I don't have Carolina up there for the East, do I? So we're going to have to move Pittsburgh down. We're going to have to move Detroit down. Carolina, I'm going to have below Tampa Bay. I'm just going to kind of have to. And again, this shows that the teams that are favored at the start of the year, it's a long season. It's 82 games. So I'll throw Carolina in there, which shows I did not have this all pre-planned out, right? Anybody else that I missed in the East? I'm going to put the Islanders up here. I do think that if the Islanders get into the playoffs, they're going to be dangerous because the style of hockey the Islanders play, it's not overly exciting, but it is definitely a style of play that can work in the playoffs. They're very disciplined, usually very disciplined anyways, and their games are usually pretty fast and free flowing. And I do think that if they get in, they've got Sorokin as their goalie, they could be very, very dangerous. So going back out west, man, in terms of a team that I think could win a Stanley Cup, am I going to put Minnesota up next? I'll put Seattle up next. I think Seattle can turn it around. I know they're 8-10-5. There's not a lot of evidence that they're going to turn it around, but I'll say Seattle. Sure. And then back to the East, I'm going to put Philadelphia. Philadelphia is overdue for a run. They're overdue for a run to the Stanley Cup final. I'm not going to say winning it, but they're overdue for a nice long playoff run, which is usually followed up by disappointment the next season. But yeah, they're at least due for some kind of fun little, at least conference final type run, but they have to get above the playoff line and stay there. Going back out west, it gets tough out west. I'm going to go with Calgary, and next at that spot. The Calgary Flames, much like their brethren to the north in Edmonton, if they can get on a run, they'll be dangerous. Their goaltending could be better than what it is. I would say the same of Edmonton's with Skinner. And so, yeah, I'm going to go with Calgary there. I'll stay out west for the next one, and I'm going to go with Arizona as the next one. So before anybody, says, oh, Arizona, how dare you? That would be 12th most likely in the West. So it's not very likely. If Arizona gets in the playoffs, though, there would be absolutely zero pressure on them. And the teams with zero pressure can win their share of games come playoff time. Going back out east, you know what? I'll have New Jersey ahead of Philly. I'll have New Jersey ahead of the Islanders. Just when I see it on the board, I'm like, even with New Jersey having some tough results recently, I still think in a playoff series they would do all right. But again, they have to get over on this side and stay on this side for a while. That was my pick. My Stanley Cup pick before the season started was New Jersey. It still is. But if the playoffs started today, I don't know that I like their chances. Which brings us back out west. I'll throw Minnesota on the board. The Minnesota Wild, it's been quite the season already. And there's still some time left for them to get things together and potentially end up in the playoffs. Definitely firing the coach. Interesting move. Dean Evison saying he's ready to go coach somewhere else. He doesn't need any time off. He's ready to go. And I admire that spirit. So I'm going to have Minnesota there. I'm going to put Anaheim next. And then to round out the West, Chicago and San Jose. Highly unlikely. Even with the run San Jose's been on lately, would they win a best-of-7 series against anybody? The funny thing about that is, if they had enough home games the way they've been playing at home lately, maybe. They've definitely done exactly what we knew they'd have to do. They've been just restricting chances in their game, keeping shots down, getting heroic goaltending from Blackwood and Kakkonen recently too. San Jose playing the way you need to. Some kind of ugly hockey to get some wins, but still, I would have them at the bottom there. So we have 4 teams left in the East. I'm going to put Ottawa right here. Ottawa's been very up and down, and I would have concerns with goaltending. Like, for instance, I understand, the Flyers are still seen as rebuilding too, but in a playoff series, would I rather have Jonas Korpisalo or Carter Hart? I honestly, right now, I'm kind of on the fence with that. I do think the Flyers have shown that they can win some games people don't expect them to already, and so yeah, I'll put them there. Buffalo. Man, Buffalo. I really don't want Buffalo to be outside the playoffs again. I don't want to be doing a video in April or May talking about how Buffalo fell short again and what happens then. Do they make a change at coach? Do they make a change in general manager? What did they do? Where do they go from there? They've already got a good young core there. There's a lot of good players at every level of the team. I don't know how you fix it. Montreal's up next. I will say if Montreal keeps pegging off some wins, and if they can somehow slide into playoff contention and give their GM some pause about maybe adding at the deadline, Montreal would, much like some of the other teams in the West, when you don't have pressure going into the playoffs, it feels great. And so if Montreal overachieves and ends up in the playoffs, they could be really tough out. So let's just say, for instance, Boston finishes number 1. They get enough wins and points, they're number 1. And the number 8 seed or your second wild card is Montreal. That can be a bad matchup for Boston. That could be a really bad matchup for Boston, which brings us to Columbus. Columbus has played better lately. Lost to Montreal last night. They've won, I think it's what, 4 of their last 6, something along those lines. So Columbus has won their share, but again, in a playoff series, I don't know if I would like their chances necessarily. So there you go. If I was ranking the likeliest Stanley Cup contenders based on right now over a 7-game series, that's where I would put it. Even though Vegas has been sloppy lately, they've only got 3 wins in their last 10. I'm just saying that in a best of 7 series, things change. Regular season's regular season, but in a best of 7 series, I still think Vegas would be very, very dangerous. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Which team do you think right now would win a Stanley Cup if the playoffs started today? And which one do you think would be an easy or a difficult out in the first round? And where would you see upsets? Let me know your thoughts. There are no wrong answers because we don't have the playoffs in November. I just thought it was a fun video to do today. Let me know your thoughts. Hit like and subscribe if you have not done so already. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.